As you know, InvestCEC, or some of you may know, is a Horizon Europe funded project and is also one of the group of project that is under the group of the umbrella of Circular Cities and Regions initiative of the European Commission. What is important to say about our project and what we are actually doing is the fact that we are aiming to develop a replicable model for the initiation of circular economy projects in cities and regions across Europe. With this model, we really aim to improve the collaboration between the entrepreneurs, the investors, and the policymakers. The effectiveness of this model is currently being tested in Klagenfurt, which is the largest city in southern Austria. We also have representatives of the city in this particular session. But to now focus on and zoom in on today's agenda, what is ahead of us and what we would like to present today. We have two topics presented by two speakers. We are starting with the topic of navigating funding challenges in circular economy businesses. That will be in which Uffe Bundgaard-Jørgensen from Gate2Growth will introduce the InvestCEC setup and delve into the topic of how entrepreneurs can best navigate their funding obstacles within the circular economy context and also develop comprehensive funding strategies to meet the investors' expectations. A couple of words about Uffe, he can later add to what I'm saying, is that Uffe has a PhD in economy and investment theory. He has experience that includes roles as research manager, CEO of natural gas company, and CEO of Danish venture capital fund. He is also the founder and CEO of Gate2Growth, which is one of the InvestCEC partners in the project. So we are very happy to have Uffe on board and speaking today. Our second speaker is and its topic to be presented is the topic of facilitating investment for circular economy projects. And the speaker with us is Tommaso Buso from Bankers Without Boundaries, representing DEFINITE-CCRI project. Tommaso is an associate at Bankers Without Boundaries, where he specializes in circular economy project support, in sustainable sovereign finance for climate adaptation, nature-based solution, financing and decarbonization at the urban level. His experience extends to advising executives and governments on sovereign debt issuance and green financing across 4 continents and more than 20 cities. Tommaso holds a master's in economic and public policy from Sciences Po, and he also has an executive education certification from Oxford Said Business School. And he previously worked at Amundi Asset Management and Deloitte Sustainability Paris. So Tommaso, we are very happy to have you on board. As I said, after the session of both speakers, we will continue with a dedicated QA session where you can ask more elaborated questions. Please, when asking the questions in the chat, also specify to which speaker you are asking question in case it is speaker specific. If not, then you want both speakers to ask, so please also say that as well. And without further ado, I would like to start Uffe's session. So Uffe, please feel free to take the lead, and we are very happy to listen to your presentation.
Thanks, Andrea. Thank you for the kind introduction. I'll try to share my screen. See if it works. It seems to work. Let's see if I can. I need to move you up here so I can. Well, first of all, this is a kind of interesting because I didn't know what InvestCEC is because we are called it InvestCEC. So different languages use different abbreviations. I'll try to talk a bit about navigating funding challenges in circular economy businesses, and I'll skip this slide because Andrea has so nicely presented me. What we deal with in InvestCEC is circular economy business and funding, and try to bring together the key stakeholders, namely companies, entrepreneurs, investors, and customers, in this case, a public entity, Klagenfurt Stadtwerke. And in essence, where the 3 circles intersect, we have the InvestCEC. What I'm trying to dwell a bit on is why is circular economy projects so difficult to fund. And one of the reasons are that the traditional linear value chain or supply chain, when you move from one level to the other, there are a lot of different options or partners or colleagues with whom you can intersect before your product ends in the waste bin. In the circular economy value chain, there are less partners, and all the partners or parties in the circle are depending on what the other level in the circle provides and the quality and the quantity and the timing and things like that. So the circular value supply chain deals about recycling, side stream valorization, and waste valorization, and a lot of other things. And the problem is it involves much more interdependency than in the traditional linear supply chain. First of all, there are in many of these projects or companies, they're dealing with emerging technology. So there is a struggle to secure funding because there is a technology interdependence. For instance, in this case, waste sorting has to have a certain quality in order to create something which is enough to be used as biomass. Some biomass can be used in some countries, not in other countries. And then it goes to the household and you have the whole circular and sorting problem. One of the new sorting problems I have seen, which I have never thought I would have, is the Italian waste sorting problem for households. And they want to incentivize people in the way they are sorting their waste by putting a lock on the public waste bins. So you have to have a credit card to open the waste bin. And that should incentivize people in putting the waste in the right waste bin. I think it has the different impact. But if we look at the business side, each of these technologies are operated by a business. And that means that you are not only depending on technologies from other partners in the circle, you're also depending on the survival of the businesses we operating the different parts in the circle. And if we compare these two things, if we have such a circle with a lot of interdependency, if one of the technologies fail, the circle evaporates. And then you had, from an investor point of view, another risk connected to it, namely that one of the companies in circle, irrespective of technology, may also fail, and the same thing. So the circle disappears, that is a problem from an investor point of view. So beyond technology challenges and normal market challenges, there is this interdependency challenge or risk, which is a big concern for investors because they need not only to know about the company in which they invest, but they basically need to know the entire circle and because the investment in one company and the successful investment in one company is depending on the success of all the other parties in the circle. Again, if the technology doesn't work, the circle collapses. Again, if one of the companies goes out, even if we have joined some of the companies into one company, again, the circle collapses. A joint venture structure may reduce the risk, but that means that we need to know the interdependency between all the partners in the circle. And in that case, if one of the parties here disappears, then we may still have the circle to operate. So all that brings a lot of risk into the investments in circular economy. That's one problem. The other problem is funding and liquidity. Everybody knows about the death valley. You start with getting initial funding from friends and fools and fellows, and then you have a surviving phase, and those who do not make it during surviving phase and get their financial needs covered, they end up in the graveyard of the Death Valley. And those who survive is getting across the Death Valley and may have the wonderful time of revenues and also return to the investors. So there is a substantial funding gap. And the relevant sources for funding are loans and grants and investments. For early stage companies, forget about the loans. Then you have grants and investments. But in order to find out how much money you need to estimate your activities. Based on that, estimate your cost and revenues, identify the funding needs, and developing a funding strategy. And this is one of the things which we try to support entrepreneurs with in InvestCEC project. I'll give an example here. For instance, if you have research, product development, early testing to sales, and based on these activities, we can estimate your cost. And here's a good example. Altogether, getting to the market cost 2 million euro. And in this particular case, we have found out that grants are great because it's non-repayable funds, no repayment required. The only downside is there's limited availability and very strict criteria. But let's stick to the grant. And if we have a highly technology type of technology, which could, for instance, be a accelerator pathfinder grant, you get 100% funded of all your costs, and you even get 30% of the total grant in the beginning. So everything is green, no problems, liquidity, no problems. You get 100% funded, and you even get pre-financing. So do you have any type of problems? We'll try to simulate this with a linear cost basis over the 2 years the project runs. And in month 8, you run out of money. You have a cost reporting period at 12 months. And then you have to, in this case, we are very optimistic. You get your money after 2 months. Normally, you get it after 6 months. And then the next installment is then got. And then you run out of money again in month 20. And in month 24, if you still survive, you submit your cost statement. And basically, even 100% funded grant gives you 2 experiences of looking into the death cliff. Just imagine the funding needs with a 70% funding rate. Here's an example of an accelerator grant for a project cost 3.5 million euro. You get funding rate of 70% and you get a prepayment of 40%. And this is the liquidity. So even if you get grants, you need to have investors on board or other sources of funding. To get investors on board, you have to understand the investment environment. There are many different types of investors, and these are the more formal ones, the business angels, the 3Fs, the fools, friends, and families. The friends are probably not going to be friends a long time. And then there's crowdfunding. Then you have seed stage funding, your early stage funding, and your expansion stage funding. These first type of funding sources are called venture capital. And then you have the later stage funding, which is private equity. And then this is more theoretical. This is initial public offering that you go to the stock exchange to get more funding. So basically, what is important here is that these type of different investors do not stick together. If you have seed funding and need more funding, for instance, to cover the gap in an accelerator grant, you may need a early stage investment in, but it's not automatically ready to invest. So there'll be some time where you don't have any money. So there's a considerable time risk where you move from one type of investor to the next type of investor. And this is the reason that a funding strategy which involves grants and investments is important for getting early stage companies dealing with circular economy off the ground until they get into revenue positive cash flow situation. And there are R&D grants, there are exploitation grants, and then there is transition or scaling grants. And the last ones are grants of the type from the EU Innovation Fund, where you can get from 10, 15 million to one of our clients have been looking for 250 million in grants for an expansion activity. So even if the grant looks very appealing, the co-financing to the grant is also important to have in mind. We could illustrate it in a slightly different way. If you're going to make a strategic planning for your funding, you need to look at national grants, and you need to look at EU grants. And in InvestCEC, our role is to support entrepreneurs with a sort of developing a funding strategy, which includes the use of national grants, EU grants, combined with identifying the right investors. And the interesting thing here is also that investors may be more inclined to invest in a company if it also gets a national grant or if it gets an EU grants. Both national grants and EU grants can be seen from investors' point of view as sort of endorsement of the quality. In particular, EU grants are a very, very strong endorsement seen through the eyes of investors, simply because the investors know it's so damn difficult to get these grants that only super projects get these grants. And that means super projects are also super investment opportunities. So there's a very nice connection between getting EU grants and opportunities of also getting investors in. And this combined funding strategy is very difficult for most entrepreneurs to develop, simply because they don't have enough detailed knowledge about the conditions behind grant applications and the conditions and what investors are looking at. So in InvestCEC, we try to bring companies together with investors. We're actually trying to raise a circular economy focused fund, and customers. And in this case, we have the opportunity to have a very large competent customer, namely Stadtwerke Klagenfurt. So altogether, InvestCEC brings companies together with customers and investors. The entrepreneurs, they're looking for funding, but they fear selling too much of their company to investors, and we help them to reduce their fear and have a more realistic view on what it is to work with investors. Then we can present good products in front of a quality customer, Klagenfurt. And we have also identified a big problem here because there are the public procurement barrier, which we are also going to deal with. And then we have an investor. The fund is going to be created, who is looking for innovative companies with high potential and minimal circular economy risk, the type of circular economy risk which I spoke about early on. And then there's a group of companies, with a few in InvestCEC, who can assist the companies and entrepreneurs in developing their funding strategy. So if you need more information, contact me or my colleague Nikolai Lerved. Here are our coordinates and email addresses. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Uffe, for your presentation. I just want to ask if anyone has directly now a question. We have a couple of minutes to take some question with regards to Uffe's presentation. So please go ahead and ask us. Yes, Anna, you have a question. Feel free also, if you want to speak, open the camera or open the microphone.
Hi everyone. My name is Anna. I know Tommaso, as we're part of the DEFINITE project. We are a circular economy business called the Circular Library Network. And we're currently looking at alternative fundings or investment funds. And Uffe, if you don't mind letting me know, is this something that is going to be open? Is this fund specifically for the selected companies through the group, through the project you guys are running? Or would this be made available to other companies to be able to join that investment opportunity in the future?
It's an investment fund which is going to be created in parallel with the InvestCEC. It's an integrated part of InvestCEC, but there we're looking for excellent investment opportunities, whether they come from InvestCEC, identified companies, or anything else. Investors are not choosy. They invest in where they can make money.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate the answer.
Okay, do we have some other question? If not at this moment, please feel free to write in the chat. We will be very happy to answer. And now I would like to give floor to Tommaso with his presentation. So thank you, Tommaso. Ahead.
Thanks. Thanks, Andrea. Good afternoon, everybody. So once again, Tommaso here, representing both Bankers Without Boundaries, our non-for-profit organization founded in 2010. We are mainly financial advisors. We work across topics in the sustainable finance space, and circularity is definitely one of those. And we are the financial partner for DEFINITE-CCRI. I'm glad to see Anna today as one of the projects so far in our pipeline. So great to see also our projects participate in this kind of events. We are joined also in our efforts in DEFINITE-CCRI by a set of other organizations. I put them here to recognize the work, especially Circular Economy, the City of Ghent, the National Technical University of Athens, as well as ICLEI Europe. So today I'm going to delve slightly into what DEFINITE-CCRI is and what he has been doing so far, and give some of the financial selection criteria that have been used to bring projects from the initial application phase to the current one. And after that, I'm going to delve a little more into the financial elements of the circularity business models. We think that it's really important for projects that do approach investors, or they are trying to conceive their business models, to understand since the very beginning what the financial implications of choosing one circular business model over another could be. So this is where this comes in. And lastly, some insights on security and finance for circularity, with no aspiration to be exhaustive, but is really complementing what Uffe just said so far. So the DEFINITE-CCRI is a project development assistance organization or just initiative, we could say. The objective is to put together technical and financial expertise through local project development assistance. We have created what is so-called the deal engine mechanism, which aims to bring projects from the very beginning, early stage, to redefining the data, and then getting all the way to appraising them to investors. The objective, of course, is to close the gap between circular economy projects, especially in cities and regions. So we're looking at those projects that have at least some kind of linkage to cities or regions. It's potentially even more complicated than the average project that just looks at circularity, because we're also trying to see the connection to public entities, and when there's linkage or where there's support from cities, this can bring a lot of value, because cities have a set of network, have all the potential available connection with the cities and citizens in the area. But at the same time, most cases, these projects are not their main activity, which makes so that it's complicated sometimes to develop them. So it's probably an ambitious probably a more ambitious endeavor to put these two elements together. And the idea and the objective is to launch 4 investment in circular economy projects of up to 20 million investment volume, in a way that's similar to what Uffe said, trying to blend the grants on the one hand and the private sector investments on the other, but at the same time trying, given our limited timelines, starting maybe with those that have already some kind of grants, that have already secured some funding or financing, and it's a bit easier within the 2-year overall project duration to do that. This is just an overview of our so-called deal engine mechanism that start from the selection of a pipeline, working deeply both on the financial assessment and the technical assessment. It's been roughly 6 months now that we have done the whole process, and really trying to make sure that everybody's assessed from a same standpoint, from the same level in playing field, is not easy at all, especially on the technical side of things, where everybody has their different approach to circularity. Everybody's trying to collect their data, and seeing who is advancing most is definitely not that easy. And also we're trying to see, of course, what we call the impact potential. So it's not just about who can get the money quicker. It's not just about who's the most ready to deploy the projects. It's really about, if the project is deployed, how many people can it affect, how much CO2 can it save, etc. And in a lot of these areas, given that the models are still quite theoretical, it's been an interesting ride to see how that is calculated, that is working, but we're getting there. And now we're just starting the support phase, which will last another 6 months. And at this phase, we're really going through the technical, legal, financial that will lead us to present the projects to investors. This is just an overview to see where we are at. The objective is really from December through April next year to be able to have investors make deals and broker deals with them so far. All right. So when it comes to the financial criteria that we use to select some of these projects, we had to skim them down to the core. We really had to go really broad in a sense, because some of them are really early stage, some of them are just conceptual, but they really, the most important point was really trying to understand whether their business model had already some clarity and structure, and whether it was connected also, because we're looking at the public sector as well, whether it's connected to the city, it's connected to the region, how is that? From that, we try to see if there is potential. Some projects have already developed that, but some have not. There is potential to leverage revenue streams, whether they are in any way, shape, or form replicable, scalable in any way. And we asked if there's any demand or market assessment that is being performed. Sometimes there is, and it's really hard, I'd say, in these new models to see whether there is a market, because it's completely new, and it entails many times radical changes in behavior from users. So it's a bet also on people's willingness to change their behaviors and change the way they use things, etc. So if we just think about, for instance, reusage of materials, or since I have Anna here with us, the concept of having tools that people can borrow or something, the potential usage is immense, but are people willing to do that change? And that's where the incentives come in, that's where the cost structure comes in, that's where all the ways in which we can support people to change the way to do things, intervenes into the conversation. I won't go through every single point of these, but just I put in red And I think Andrea will also share the slides afterwards, so you can go through it at your pace. But we, of course, as Uffe said, if there is some funding or financing that has already been received, that's of course important, because grant on its own, you won't cover the whole liquidity issues of the organization, and just financing on its own, unless it's concessional, meaning that unless there are some specific arrangements that allow organizations to give back money in a delayed fashion, or they can give back the capital that they received once they hit certain goals. Unless there are these types of concessionality, it's very hard to rely exclusively on loans, for instance. Equity is still something that can be done, but of course, as Uffe was saying, it dilutes ownership, and we don't necessarily want to do that. In this phase, we also assessed, very importantly, the management team, how responsive they were, how active they were, and also saw whether there were any major legal or regulatory concerns on this front. So this is really the early stage assessments. Now, what I find missing sometimes in some of these conversations is trying to delve in some of the opportunities, and especially some of the business models, to see what implications this has from a financial standpoint. And I assume, since we are in a world circular economy forum, that most of us know already these points, like these business models, but maybe not everyone will have thought about the implications of what it means exactly to delve into product as a service. So I found this very interesting design that shows circular value loop that represents at which stage the 5 circular business models can arise, whether it starts from the design phase, the sourcing, where you can then see resource recovery, manufacturing, logistics. Of course, once you've sold the product, then you can think about use extension, and alongside this, there's product as a service in the middle that can encompass all of these elements. And on the side, when we reach end of use, we can talk about circular inputs and resource recovery. So just to repeat, product as a service is number 1, use extension, sharing platforms, circular inputs, and resource recovery. Right. So if we start from the product as a service, which is I would say it's a more recent term. If we look at older documents, older studies, we will find rather retained product ownership. But this product as a service is sort of like had to arise alongside the SaaS, the software as a service. So we sort of like echoing each other. But the real idea behind it is the retained product ownership. The ownership passes from the end users to the actual producer, and the producer has now the accountability for the product throughout its duration. This means that product as a service will almost inevitably be the product of a relationship between 2 businesses. It's quite hard that they can be executed or carried out between a business and an end consumer. But what they can ensure is potentially higher revenue over product lifetime. If we think about companies such as Hilti, I was in touch with some of them recently. Hilti is a large product tool manufacturing company, and it has recently shifted almost exclusively to the product as a service solution. They reacquired all their power tools, and they're offering the service paid out monthly for construction workers and manufacturers regarding that they use these power tools. This has implied a massive cost at the beginning to reacquire all these tools, and can now ensure over a longer period of time even more revenues, because this is very recurrent revenue, and it's quote unquote safe, but at the same time, the recovery time of the investment for somebody, for an external investor who invests into a product as a service, is going to be steady but slow. There is also a higher customer retention theoretically. So the person or the entity that purchases the service from you will stick to you unless your service is not adequate. But once again, and this prevents them from going to purchase other tools elsewhere. But this once again it implies that it takes longer time to establish this relationship, and also there are higher barriers to entry before a transaction starts, because you know that if you start entering in a relationship with the business, you have to maintain it. So the barriers to entry are potentially a little higher. Investors might not even consider the product as a collateral. This is among the complexities. So the revenue is delayed and returned on a period of time, and investors might not consider the product as a collateral. Why I'm saying that? Because when there is a loan, whether especially when there's some loan that uses some collateral, if you have power tools, they're very high cost and very capital intensive tools, then those can be taken as collateral. So the lack of initial capital can be replaced in a way by using these high cost tools as collateral. But if the product you are giving is not very expensive, it can lead to not that being taken into account as collateral, which can be problematic. Okay. If we then talk about another major business model, which is the resource recovery models, whether it's upcycling, downcycling, industrial symbiosis. You have here a very well done graph from EMF 2015. We adapted conception on industrial symbiosis and circular economy. What you see is that at what level you go from raw materials to the full integration into the industrial activities, when it goes through the manufacturers, the service provider, all the way to the consumer. And what's important is the fact that yes, there are cost savings on raw materials, there are enhanced brand value and resource efficiency, but as Uffe was very smartly pointing out, this relies on a very fragile equilibrium where every member of the chain needs to be working all the time and needs to be not to fail. Let's say it needs to be remain in business and execute. The stakeholder coordination is really important, and if there's at any point of the chain, of the circular chain or link, a failure, then this can lead to a breakdown of the model. There's less predictable margins as well for reuse, or if you think about upcycling or downcycling, if we think about the fact that the recycled plastic market or reused plastic market has been more volatile than the virgin plastic, we can see that it's hard to rely on these margins because of the more adapting and more easily changing prices of some elements. And lastly, it's of course the sharing economy platforms. So they have been growing in popularity. Of course, projects come in with the idea of creating a new platform and having a lot of users. And of course, there's this whole enticing element of it, which is, okay, let's create a new platform. We're going to have a lot of users. We can extract a fee for every service that we give these users, and we're going to be like Facebook, but of circularity. And it's like, great, if you become Facebook, if you become that big, if you pass that tipping point where a lot of people want to use your platform. But until that high bar of tipping point, that platform is just liability. It's just something that you are wasting so much money on, that you're putting so many resources on, that it's not necessarily going to give you what you think you're gonna get. So if of course a platform is successful, you can get a lot of fees. You can advertise within your own platform. You can upsell. You can resell and upsell people on services. So if you offer multiple services, they can come in for service A, and then once they're in, they get a discount on service B, and you keep this attachment. And this is all good. But as I was saying, the two path dependencies, people take a long time before adapting to a new platform and deciding to use yours. And especially if we think about a point in a few years, maybe when we have more than one platform doing similar things, then you reach a point of oligopoly or something like the social media market, where there's like 4 or 5 and they control everything, because the cost of changing platform again is too big. So this is something that circular projects should most probably keep in mind for their considerations. Now we're reaching the point where we do more thinking about our main stream of work at BWB and in DEFINITE-CCRI more extensively. We're looking precisely at where the flow of capital, repayable capital, is coming from, so not necessarily grants. And we see that among the most successful actors, at least in the European Union, there is the EIB. The EIB is a really, really strong actor in financing circularity. You see here a graph breaking down the circular economy lending by source from the EIB in the past 10 years now. Last data updated a couple of years ago. And you see how it breaks down. Industry and services are sort of like the solid backbone, but waste management is really picking up, as well as multi-sectoral elements. So and conversely, we've seen water management going down a little bit. So this is just to say that some sectors are becoming more investable and highlighting the role of the EIB. If we look, however, at the amounts that these have achieved, we're talking in the period 2018-2022 of 3.5 billion, which is less than $1 billion a year in the whole of the European Union. It's not that small, but if we see the potential, if we see all the people that are around this table today that know how much circularity could scale, thinking that the main actor in the European Union when it comes to circularity only deploys slightly less than 1 billion a year, then we understand that the market is of course, there's a lot of growth potentially. I also put down there for green bond issuances, circular projects represent less than 2% of total proceeds levied, in particular in the EU. Put you a link for the Nordic Circular Hotspot. 2% in the green bond space. So a lot of them go to broadly environmental related projects. Some go to social, and just 2% goes to circularity. You can also, when it comes to our work at Definite, you can, even though you're not part of the project pipeline, you can go at this link, definite-ccri.eu/documents, and here you can find different reports, different insights that we have collected so far, among which we've indicated the investor base and financial instruments. We've indicated some type of investors aside from the EIB that are interested in investing in circularity. And in particular, we have looked at not so common financial instruments, and I want to share them with you. So if we look at that, aside from project finance, which everybody here is aware of, project finance is generally done for large infrastructure development, technology implementation, and similar. So there's probably a barrier to entry when it comes to the size of it. A lot of project finance will not go for 1 million euro projects like the ones that we're seeing sometimes at Definite. which is why other solutions are suggested. In particular, revolving credit facilities is just a flexible funding options. You open an account at a private bank and you only withdraw as you need the money. This of course leaves more flexibility, but it has some higher fees when it comes to the operating costs of this facility. So this can be an obstacle for some. Then there's impact-linked loans. Some organizations offer impact-linked loans. There's still quite a limited amount, but I guess at least in France, where I work, some banks have started giving impact-linked loans not just to businesses but also to privates. The discounts on the loan, if you achieve the objective, is not massive. Normally it's probably 20 basis points, so 0.2%, but it still gives an incentive for decarbonization to happen, for material repurposing, material consumption reduction, all these KPIs that are normally negotiated with the investor, with the bank, and they can, in 0.2% on a 10 million, on a 1 million project could be, not too much, but still is something. And then lastly, green and sustainable loans. They're specifically designed for environmentally friendly projects, okay? And the idea here is just giving a label to the loan, and the loan can have a negotiated difference in the price, let's say in the repayment interest rate. So while the impact-linked loan is just assessed retroactively, so once and whether the KPI is achieved, then the discount will be applied. In the green and sustainable loans, the interest rate can be negotiated beforehand if the bank, for instance, really believes in the project. When it comes to equity, we can have different ways. There are not just the traditional equity solution. Angel investor setup. I would say, following up what Uffe said before, the angel investor setup would probably follow by little the friends, family, and fools phase, which would happen after probably like 100K. You start having angel investors, and this can help foster development new circular economy solutions. But of course, this is really limited in the amount of capital is given. We're talking 100K to 1 million, and it's considered very, very high risk. Pooled funds, you can pull resources from multiple sources. So what we've been discussing so far about putting different types of investors with different risk appetites, and then dispersing these funds according to like agreed criteria. Every country will have their own legal system, so I want to be able to say whether in your own country you can do that, in what and under which condition, but it's still something that can adjust for the different risk appetites of different investors. Equity to debt convertible option. So you start by offering equity that under certain conditions can be converted into debt. And this is maybe appealing for investors for entrepreneurs or project owners who want to retain their ownership. So they can start by receiving the equity, and then if it goes well, they can give back the capital through debt. This is quite expensive, of course, compared to the normal debt option, but it's still less expensive if the project is successful than giving up a major portion of the equity and losing the whole upscale from that point on, if we see that the upscale can be strong. And lastly, okay, well, senior preferred equity tranche. it's probably, yeah, we can skip that at this phase. Okay. Lastly, we would like to also mention this report or this guide, which has been published lately by Circular Innovation. It's called the Guide for Accelerating Circular Innovation Across Regional Value Chains. And as you see, BWB was part of the consortium that put this guide together. We were working alongside Metabolic, the Impact Hub of Amsterdam, Doyen Foundation, Amsterdam Impact, among others. It's a three-part report. It's a three-part guide that you can retrieve at circularinnovationcollective.nl. And I would really like to just highlight a couple of points that I think are interesting in what they share. First, this is probably a bit more detailed progression graph to what Uffe had previously shared, but this just breaks down also for circularity related projects from how to go from concept stage all the way to seed C using subsidies, using venture capital, using family offices, private equity, traditional investors, crowdfunding. So this, for instance, if we see, for instance, seed phase is the one when you probably you can tap on most actors, and so you'll find you can have both bootstrapping, you can have subsidies, you can have early stage venture capital, you can use grants, of course. So this is just a reminder for those of us that are maybe less versed into the financial and they're looking at who might help me at which phase. This is a good reminder. And also, once the project has really explained and developed their value proposition, the project's really thought through about the implications, the financial implication of the business model, has tried to understand whether investors are more or less keen on giving them capital if they have a platform as a service versus a sharing network. Then they'll have to put together their pitch deck. At DEFINITE-CCRI, we are helping projects do that. We will do that over the next, roughly at the end of the due diligence phase, once we have completed our preliminary work. But in this guide, in the guide that I just showed you, you'll find this same standard pitch deck reminder or sort of like summary of what should be in your pitch deck. And it really walks you from the problem statement to the market analysis, the target audience. Market analysis, we said, not just what you can reach, but also how you can potentially work on changing behaviors, financials, goals, capital need, being quite clear on how much capital you need, how much capital you might want from whom, and the guide also helps you on figuring out who can give you what at what stage. But it's really quite important that you come in with a specific demand, so you can also be redirected to the different people that can have that financial availability. Of course, key partners and the team. The team is more important than you think at times. All right, so my time has elapsed, and please do reach out if you have any further questions. Andrea will distribute the slides as well, and yeah, happy to take any questions if there are.
Thank you, Tommaso. It was very interesting, especially the circular value loop that you presented. I think very useful and interesting approach how to look at things. So I would start the Q&A session with both of our speakers. As our colleague Meryl also wrote in the chat, we are also interested to know what's your profile, where you are coming from. So please either write in the chat or introduce yourself. We still have also a place for that, of course with some kind of question if it should be live. And I will start with the questions that we have in the chat. The first one is coming from Manfred. Thank you very much, Manfred. Manfred is our partner from Klagenfurt. So the question is for Tommaso, if I understood correctly. Mix of financial instrument and grants is important. Also, relationship of equity and liabilities in the balance sheets of their enterprises. The same goes for the profit participation rights to bring more equity in. Also, the EU regulation like taxonomy and social reporting instruments. Financing turntables in relationship to public enterprises are also important. So what is your experience with those?
We like to maybe let Manfred elaborate a little more.
Yes, Manfred, maybe you can open your mic and yes.
Yes. Hello, Tommaso. As Uffe presented before, the mix of grants and financial instruments are very, very important. So in this sense, from the enterprise side, also the relationship between equity and debts. So we have to bring some equity in our balances. And our experience in Klagenfurt in Austria was to bring profit participation rights within, because insurance companies, even banks with the targets of some sustainable projects, to finance sustainable projects, are very interesting now to finance such sustainable projects. So the relationship between banks like EIB, like other banks, like finance instruments is very important, and we need turntables. We need knowledge within the enterprises. Yes, and that is another question I have: how to share experience within our projects. I discussed this task within other projects, and there are some good ideas within the project, how we can connect this on internet, to share knowledge, not to review, to bring new knowledge in, but experience. What is your opinion about this?
So for knowledge sharing, and this turns out quite useful, because DEFINITE-CCRI has developed a community of practice to which we have invited a lot of people that, like you, are working with circularity related projects as well as investors. And every 3 to 4 months there is a meeting, and there's people can come in and share exactly their expertise. There is the topic of the day, so we can share a calendar with you with the next upcoming events. And this is sort of like our effort to start that conversation. We feel like there's a lot of knowledge that is already there that just needs to be spread a little more. But I don't think it's enough, in the sense that that's our contribution is just once or 2-3 times a year. But there's more that can be done in terms of better knowledge sharing, etc. I guess also, Uffe, on your end, if you have any recommendation on what do you think on how you think knowledge could best be deployed and shared at this stage.
Well, our experiences about knowledge sharing is a bit different, because we have seen that people are desperately looking for knowledge and general knowledge, and it basically very often have difficulties in making the translation into their concrete situation, because the preconditions for a lot of the solutions which are attractive are not known when you do present the cases. So we think, and that's not because we are dealing with advising on these particular subjects, but we basically think that knowledge sharing is often best done by talking with people who have deep insight in certain cases. I think it's a bit sometimes like making a health diagnosis by going to the internet doctor compared to talking with your doctor. So if you look for solutions going on the internet, you may compare to going for diagnosis and treatment for your health problems on the internet.
Okay. Thank you very much for the answers. Tommaso, you want to add something? Or I think that's it.
Yeah, we can move to the next topic.
Okay, so we can move a question. Actually, I wrote a question, so I'm gonna read mine. So my question was, which of the financing instruments, Tommaso, that you presented would you highlight as something that the early stage projects should pay maybe higher attention, something that is somehow being usually overlooked or not considered, or they don't put too much attention to this, and maybe should have maybe a personal experience or experience within the project that you would highlight to the audience today.
So for early stage projects, which ones are the best? So it's really in a way a case by case basis, I would say, but definitely and depending also on what projects are willing to give up. In a way that it's always a negotiation. If you are willing to give up some ownership and your cash needs are not that massive at the beginning because you don't have to build new products or something, then equity in different shapes or form can work. But if you're really relying on unpredictable elements, unpredictable investments, etc., then a revolving credit facility will work better. It's quite hard to say what's best, just as a general element, as a general consideration. It's really I would say on a case by case basis, and depends on the capital needs at that time. It depends on the investor thesis of the investor they find. So it's really opening. Probably the recommendation is to open and keep mind on what you could get, not just coming in with a fixed idea. I need X amount of loan in X time. Maybe working and discussing whether it's the IB, whether you're part of the project with us. We talk about that. We go through your business model and see at which stage you will need how much, and what's your repayment schedule going to look like. And based on that, then you can get a sort of like a more tailored solution rather than coming in with the preconception, I would say.
Yeah, being open-minded when coming in. Yes, definitely. Uffe, you want to add to it?
Yes, I think in what Thomas has been talking about and what I've been talking about, we have forgotten one crucial element in all this funding strategy, namely the time lag. If you are looking for grants, from the moment you start looking for the grant until, if you're successful, get the grant, it takes about 12 months at least. Getting to investor can take half year, 3/4 of a year. And that means that you need to identify, and that was probably not properly explained in my funding strategy planning, but you need to make a liquidity plan with fallback options ranging at least 24 months out in the future to see what if the outcome of your funding strategy is a grant and it does materialize. How do you then survive until the resubmission possibility and other things? So making a 24 months liquidity plan and strategy for who's going to fill which holes in the liquidity plan is essential. And I still, in my many years in this business, I've still not come across many entrepreneurs who start presenting me a 24-month liquidity plan. They come and present me 1 year, 2 year, 3 year without any details of what happens during the 24 first months. And they overlook the time lag from taking the decision to go for something until you have the money in the bank. But particularly because many entrepreneurs think that getting funding of these other sources than banks are something which takes a week or a month. because getting a bank loan, you get a yes or you get a no, but if you get a yes, you get it within 1 month. But getting investors' money in take 6 to 8 to 12 months, even if you have identified the investor and the investor is positive. And for grants, it's a similar thing. And that has to be factored in the liquidity planning. And we very seldom see that. So I think that was missing from my presentation. And I also think, Thomas, so it was missing from your presentation, because we are explaining all the goodies which are on the shelves. But to grab these goodies take much longer time than most people experience or expect.
But can I then ask a follow-up question to that? Especially with these models where the demand is hard to predict, especially with a lot of activities that, you know, are sort of like fine-tuning your operations, etc. How accurate can you be in a 24-month liquidity plan? Like, I understand that you want to do like a rough liquidity plan, but maybe you know, you can find out to be very, very wrong in different ways. So it's important to have, also adjust to when, because it's hard to predict, right, as you said. But it's important to have it. Yeah.
I have been running a large venture fund, and with all our portfolio companies, we ask them to have budgets of 18 months with liquidity, and calculate the liquidity application if sales was delayed by 6 months. And costs were increased by X%, so that we knew that the range on liquidity uncertainty. And some companies basically need to have a 1 million or 2 million euro cushion funding to make them survive, maybe scale down their activity, but make them survive until, let's say, the right financing structure is in place. And I think this is what brings so many companies into the graveyard of the Death Valley. It's not necessarily that they can't get the money, but they can't get the money when they need them.
Yes. Absolutely.
Thank you for adding to that. I think, my very general question led to this very important addition to the presentation. So thank you for that. We have another question for Uffe. Uffe, what strategies can early stage companies adapt to get over the Death Valley phase? What do successful circular business do to overcome this? So maybe some experience, exactly, success story.
Well, some of the success story is this long-term planning, and also it's normally very much confidence creating. If you come to an investor and say, I need your money here, and I also need another amount of money there, and I also need another amount of money there, I am able to scale up and scale down my operating cost. I can fire some of my staff to secure that I have enough liquidity, but I need your money here. And then I have this flexibility. I'm aiming at an accelerator grant. I know the chances of success is 5-10%. If I get the right advisors in, I may raise it to 20%. It's still very low. But if I don't get the money, then I have this alternative way of developing, or you may come in with extra money. So being very transparent about the uncertainty connected to the financial plan. Remember, most investors have tons of money, so money is not their problem. Investors' problem is to find the right investment target, and if they found the right investment target, they're willing to put more money in. These money may come at high price. You get diluted and things like that, but the company is going to survive. So I think long-term planning, transparency, and realism, and also explain that you are willing to take, for instance, if you're an entrepreneur, okay, I go a half salary, or I don't take any salary for the next 3 months and things like that to solve the liquidity problems. This type of speaking makes investors interested.
Yeah. And maybe to add to it, like, did you also saw some exactly that point or that moment that exactly led to that valley, because it was something exactly with not well planned strategies, or yes, coming too overconfident, or is there something that is like literally the red flag, you are going that direction?
Well, I've had investments where the company was running out of money, and the manager came to us in a board meeting and said, "We've done everything as planned with respect to our cost. We have a problem that we are not selling as much as planned." But he hadn't done anything to cut down his expenses. So he was not, he went bankrupt because we did not want to fund him, because that was not proper way of running your business. He could have scaled down his cost, and then he could come to us, or he could have, instead of scaling down, he'll come to us in good time and tell, "We are running out of time. We have delayed in our sales. What shall we do? Are you coming in with extra financing, or shall I fire XYZ in my organization to solve the liquidity problem?" If the entrepreneur comes to the investor with attitude, the investor will help.
Ich bin gerade in einer Sitzung.
But if it is the investor who has to come up with the suggestions, he loses confidence in the management.
Yeah, thank you very much for this addition. Tommaso, any addition from your side, maybe from your experience?
Yeah, not much to add in a sense. The fact that we are working with at this stage of Definite with projects that are city linked or city sponsored changes a little this element, in the sense that they are, like, many of them are city employees, and the projects, if they don't have cash, they don't fail, they just don't start. So it's a bit different in that sense. So the urge to, like, fire people, or like to be optimal at all times, like, sort of reduces a little bit, but at the same time, it also maybe makes it less likely for the project to be very successful very fast, because of the fact that there's not the same urgency to be effective and put the money to work right away. But absolutely, fully 100%. If you're planning for capital raises or grants or anything, super important to have an idea of how long it takes to get each of those, and have a plan Bs and Cs and Ds.
Thank you very much for that add-on. Do we have any other questions coming from the audience? So far, very interesting discussion, but we also want to hear from you, maybe your success or also not success stories. Please feel free to ask. We still have a few minutes left, so we would be happy to hear from you. So, you can also type in your... Yes, Manfred, go ahead.
Yeah. One experience question is founding many great projects. Founding 20 million euros, the impact of consortial partners within a region, for example, to bring the financials to small cities. Small cities have small projects, and to combine these small projects within the region. And the region department, for example, is the consortial partner to the banks, for example, the EIB. What is your experience in this case? Are there such solutions existing within the European Union, or is this a new impact? The question to Tommaso.
I don't know anything about it.
Because my experience in the other sector, in the water deploying sector, is to bring in European Investment Bank, the advisory sector. Yeah, the advisory sector is very important because new ideas testing to finance such ideas, business models. So you can use the advisory sector of the EIB and to bring a consortium of partners like the region of Carinthia in Austria, for example, is one partner to the EIB or to other banks, and to share the financial funds within many smaller cities in Austria. So in Austria, you found much small cities which have small projects, to bring projects together, to combine it, and to finance it. Yeah, that's the idea. And is there any experience in our group? No.
I would say that right now at the European Union level, especially, there's a lot of talk about those, because especially in small, middle-sized cities, they cannot access the big EIB loans. They cannot access a lot of
knowledge
of different facilities, etc. And there is the willingness to do that. There is a lot of actors that would like that to happen, but we have not seen that
okay.
materialize. But there's really, like, at every conference I go, there's somebody who said, like, yeah, we should do project aggregation. We should do project aggregation among small cities. But it's like, just imagine multiplying the risks and the complexities, not adding them, like it's multiplying them. So the different actors, the different repayment schedules, and how it's going to be managed. Is that a board of the cities that becomes the co-CEO, like they become equal partners and CEOs of the venture? So it's potentially an exponential increase in complexity that is not factored in when these ideas are recommended. But EIB, especially like European policy officers and similar, are would like these projects to happen, because they think that's the main way, that's the best way potentially to give money to smaller projects. But not much seen yet.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Manfred. Do we have some other question?
Christian, would you like to say a couple of words on what you just posted here?
Hi, everyone. Very briefly, I'm Christine from Circular Economy. We're an impact organization from Amsterdam. I just added one link here about the Circular City Center, which is a program from the EIB where we will support cities across Europe in reaching investment readiness. So we will support cities in advancing circular projects. So I thought it was a good link to provide here.
Thank you very much, Christine. So everyone has it in the chat, so please have a look. Thank you for sharing. And we are coming closer to the time. So if anyone has a question, please feel free to raise your hand now. While I also want to promote that we will be having another InvestCEC webinar on the 30th of April, where we will discuss the financial barriers and how to overcome them. You can register to this webinar through the link that Meryl sent in the chat. We'll be very happy to see you all also in the end of the month. And please see if there are any questions. I can still raise them for you if you don't feel like speaking. But if not, we will slowly conclude the session, and thank you all. Okay. So no questions. So thank you very much. If you want to revisit the recording, it will be available online, and also the presentation will be sent to you by our colleague Meryl. So thank you very much. Thank you to our speakers. It was indeed a very interesting and stirring discussion. And have a pleasant rest of the day, everyone. Bye bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.